talking about stuff, the behavioral science of inventory. I'm not going to give you a long intro, Max, because you've been waiting to get into this.
Just
So,
fine.
yes, please go ahead and take it away.
Hi, I am a behavioral scientist and I study people and mostly what people do with computers. We are going to take a look at what people do with their stuff in games and how it matters and why it matters. But you should listen to me at all about any of this because my scholarly research is mostly in how humans study other humans and how we get that information. I study research behavior in academia versus industry for product designers in the tech industry and how we make knowledge about how people do things on the internet. I'm really interested in the edges of what we know and what's difficult to study, which is why I picked this topic, because it turns out stuff for roguelikes pushes on the edge of a lot of different paradoxes about behavior and what makes things fun. My professional career is as a product designer and researcher, mostly for early stage startups. I've worked for Microsoft and MileIQ and a bunch of other companies, usually in areas where traditional product design methods don't get you there. Because I work from first principles. That's what a behavioral scientist does in tech. Is the technology changes, but people really don't. We're still running the same hunter-gatherer brains we were thousands of years ago. So specific research about how we think and feel about inventory is rare and generally low quality, not because the researchers are bad, but because people can't be trusted to tell you how they think and feel. If you ask a player, do you like this menu, or how do you feel about this thing? You're generally going to get, I don't know, it's nice, or some version thereof. People are very bad at naming their own feelings and experiences. All of us. It's a skill. And interviewing is a skill. To get people to tell you not just an answer, but a useful answer takes a lot of training. So it's really expensive. So it creates a small research pool, especially for games and small gaming companies. There are biases into what information can get out there at all. General research about people and how we relate to stuff is also in its infancy. It was dominated by Freudian theory until the 2010s. And Freud is not as awful as everybody says he is. He actually uses the same outrage engine idea that modern social media is. In his letters, he says he was shocking on purpose. So it's not all bad. But it's not something you can rely on either, especially when what's happened since 2010 is a lot of paradoxes. For instance, our current digital psych research shows that we value digital goods less than physical goods, except when it's in a game. Gaming changes everything. And when you can only die once in real life, this muddies the research, this muddies general research a lot. You can't apply that to a roguelike. And then gaming research itself is tricky to apply to a roguelike. If you ask about meaning, fun, in games, people talk about narrative and the creation of digital selfhood. That is because most research is done in MMORPGs. This talks about relational and narrative-derived meaning. People are storytelling animals, and we make meaning by creating narrative. One thing happens after another, and then we kind of explain backwards why. We create stories to sense make. A lot of how that's done in highly relational or social games, or games where we build and tell stories, doesn't apply. Or the same words mean the same thing, or mean slightly different things. The same words don't mean the same things. So the nuance becomes lost. It's easy to turn to research and end up worse off than you started if you're trying to understand roguelikes specifically and how people interact with inventory. There's also the fact that if narrative creation and social connections were what people wanted out of the game, they would not choose roguelikes at all. If people want complex social interaction, they can go play World of Warcraft. But roguelikes have some really interesting things in common with all human experiences, in that they are defined by death and defined with stuff. We manipulate objects to keep us alive. We use them to act on our world. It's why we're successful as a species and a defining factor of humanity. We used to say we were the only tool-wielding animals, and that has long been disproven. But we are the only ones who use tools in the complex ways we do that are absolutely necessary to our survival. It takes an enormous amount of brain power. We use them to create experience, identity, and meaning to represent ourselves. For us, a thing is never just a thing. A cup gifted to you at your wedding, handed to your friend, warm with coffee, morning after morning, washed and put away, takes on the patina of every interaction, and not just external, but internal interactions. When you think of that cup, it resonates between your idea of that particular cup, your thoughts about cups like that in general, your implicit beliefs about the kind of people who might use that cup, the reconciliation of the cup in front of you with your memory of a whole cup. And there's a chip you didn't see before. And your feelings about breaking the cup you got at your wedding and handed to your friend warm with coffee. Is this the last time? It feels like yesterday. It is a wonder that we function day to day when teacups can make us think of dying. A thing is never just a thing for us. How cups connect to dying is called mortality salience. Mortality salience is the technical term for something that taps on the window we keep up to protect us from the horror of the fact that we are mortal. And it's also why roguelikes are so much fun, and many things are so much fun. We love fear, actually. Fear is great, especially when you divorce it from danger. But fear exists at a biological level to prevent death. Our brain finds danger and starts pumping chemicals into our system to prime us to fight or flee. Our irises expand and we literally take in more data than we did before. We increase respiration, heart rate quickens, muscles tense, all that. But our cognition changes and we refocus and resort. So we notice the most important things and remember the best that we ever do and react the fastest. This chemical cocktail is what underlies developing PTSD from those memories. We remember better, things are more to us when we're afraid. And we get a little jumpy, even if there's nothing to be scared of. We're on edge, but humans love that edge. We feel alive there. Research durably shows that anything that taps on the glass to remind us that we are mortal makes our lives more meaningful. This is in video games, in books, anything that reminds us that this is temporary and we will die enhances meaning. But on the physiological, much of complex play also involves just hijacking the system that dumps those chemicals in. Horror novels and roller coasters function on this. And permadeath changes what parts of a game are carrying the meaning-making load. It's not just about the fun and that creation of meaning that we might die. It's how we construct meaning internally. Generated maps and the lack of a sense of place also alter how we make meaning within these games. Normally, when you go through a game, it's much like you do in the normal world. You move through space and you see things that remind you of where you were before, that hook backward through your life and all the other positive or negative experiences you've had in that location. It echoes backward, not just in that time and space, but into you. But you don't get that in a roguelike. What you do get is objects. This hook changes fundamentally the relationship with objects in these games. So inventory is not just inventory and stuff is not just stuff. Objects become relational tools. They're objects of agency too. We act on the world in these games with objects more than other games, more than other play. They are, you take out the thing creates an action. But they're also vessels of memory and meaning. And because they persist despite the death and physical constraints of these games. In roguelikes, they function as constants, an emotional replacement for the familiarity of maps, not just of the space-time and how we usually create meaning, but of the sense of familiarity and returning to something we like. Having these objects that we learn and that we see, that we can come find again, even if we lose all of them, alleviates a lot of the sense of loss and unfamiliarity that would normally be present in the threat of death. It's like taking only the fun parts of death. Because ultimately, the game will only ever be completely new to you once. So as you return and you collect things and you act on your world, all of these vessels function as the cup. That object may vanish when you die, but a thing is never just a thing. To create meaningful inventory for players, it's important to remember that the cup is never just the cup. When you approach finding the emotional handles for ultimately people who you want to have fun, creating a sense of safety amidst danger and creating a sense of meaning, something they can look back on and have every positive interaction that they have ever had in your world come back to them when they interact with it. Empowers them to take the best parts, frankly, of what it means to die and to be alive and have fun with that.